And almost immediately, I came to realize that nothing has any meaning save the meaning we give it. You can determine what something means to you. And these days, when something hits me, I determine, what does that mean? The most powerful way to experience what you wish to experience in your life is not to be a seeker, but to be the source of it.
When did you get to Oregon? Because you were in New York, weren't you? Isn't that where you started?
No, I started, I never lived in New York. Uh,
Okay.
I lived on the East Coast, but not in New York. I lived in a little town called Annapolis,
Maryland. Okay.
in
Got it.
Annapolis, Maryland. And I
Hmm.
lived there for years, but that's not where I got started with this work. This work I began doing um, right here in Ashland, Oregon.
Oh,
I
okay.
moved to the West Coast a few years ago. I moved to San Diego to join the work of a lady named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
I'm familiar with her because I'm a nurse. So we talk about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross a lot during yeah.
Well, I was on her staff. I worked on her staff as a personal assistant to her for
Hmm.
years, and I helped her in the writing of two of her books because she needed, she was a wonderful lady, but English was not her native language. So
Oh, I
she
didn't know
needed,
that. That's interesting.
yeah, she was her native language. I think her native language was Swiss. In any event, she wasn't as facile with English as she wished she had been. So we connected at one of her programs, and I walked up to her one day and said, I'd love to help you in any way I can. I just am so intrigued by your work. If there's any way I could help you, how would it be? She said, she spoke with a very heavy Swiss accent. German accent, whatever it was. But she said, "Yeah." She said, I could use. What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a writer. I write books." She said, "Oh, I need someone to edit my writing because I don't write so well in English." I said, "Oh,
Hmm.
we have a perfect match." So I worked on two of her books, and we became very close, of course. I wound up actually moving to Escondido to be closer to her so I could work with her. I didn't actually move there to live there, but I got rented a little flat because it took us, about 2.5 or 3 months to pull her books together for the first book I worked on with her together. Anyways, a long story, but we became close. And gosh, and I remember after conversations with God became widely read, she sent me a voicemail. "So I see you got the bestseller there." I can still hear her voice saying that to me. God bless her. Anyway,
That's amazing.
she was a wonderful influence in my life and a great gift to have worked closely with her.
To humanity. She was a
Yes,
gift to
yes,
humanity.
yes, indeed, indeed, she
So I am
was.
actually oddly wanting to move to that area. My son lives in Ramona near Poway. And my other son lives in LA, and so that's my next move is to move to California. And I'm doing this work to open those doors, to, move out of the current job I have where I make an amazing amount of money and have phenomenal benefits. And how do I transition into something where stepping into that abyss of unsecured income and no benefits and trusting. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow, what an interesting risk to take. And how old are you?
I am going to be 60 in October. I'm 59 years old.
Oh, no, my gosh. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have believed that if you hadn't told me that. You look like you're around maybe 40, but not 60.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna
sure I'm not the first person who's told you that, but it's wonderful to know that you're going to move into this kind of work. Is there no way? I'm just kind of curious. I didn't mean to get into your personal life here. You're interviewing me, but
be.
i- i- is there no way that you can do both? And when you go to California, do like pick up a part-time because nursing? I mean,
Hmm.
nurses are
I
wanted all over.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I do right now isn't exactly bedside nursing. I work for a labor union and I do policy work. I union organize, I help nurses
Ah,
organize. And
ah,
so they don't have the work for me in California.
ah.
And I would have to stay in New Mexico or travel around the country. And that is my full-time job. And then during legislative session, I'm in legislative session working on policy and passing legislation. And then, so my plan is I'm actually gonna go back to school and get my master's in mental health therapy and continue. I've written one book, continue writing, doing this kind of work, stuff like that, and then just watch it unfold. I have set the intention, and now the universe, I believe, will deliver in the universe's own good timing. So
Well, God bless you.
that's that's the plan. So, but I do really want to interview you. I'm really appreciated your book a lot. I was able to look at it. I felt kind of privileged, or a lot privileged. Your assistant sent it to me. And
Which book are we talking about?
we're talking about your latest one,
Oh,
the
Letters to a Young Seeker.
yeah, yeah. Um, so my first question to you is you've spent decades talking about divinity, consciousness, and dialoguing with God. And this book feels like it's very distilled, like it's very almost like some closing thoughts. Why this book now?
It's because, thanks for that question. Uh, some months ago, I got to thinking, I wish I knew when I was 21 what I know now.
Hmm.
I was going through that self-reflective period when I looked at the mistakes I made when in my 20s, 30s, and frankly, even in my 40s. I'm not talking about huge, you know, blunders financially or, with regard to my career or whatever, or even with regard to relationships, but the kind of mistakes that stopped me from feeling totally fulfilled in life, and worse yet, to be direct and very frank, the kinds of mistakes that hurt other people. I mean, I would say things and do things because I just didn't understand what was going on in life, why I'm here, what's the purpose of all this. It didn't make any sense to me. And then after I had my conversations with God, everything became so clear to me. And I thought, and then a few months ago, I was thinking, gosh, I wish I knew when I was 21 or 31 what I know now. And my darling wife was sitting across the room. I just happened to say that. I was musing about life one evening in our living room, and my sweetheart said to me, well, why don't you put it into a book for those who are 21 or 31? And you could,
Or 60 in my case. Thank you very much.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
could, at least you could pass it on to, it could be kind of like, your departing thoughts. And
Hmm.
I said, you know what? I never thought about that, but I guess I could do that. So and I wrote what you see in the book. And then I gave it to my darling and said, what do you think? She's my best editor ever. And she said, well, I like it. It's good material. It's really well written, but it's so logical. It's also wonderfully clear logically, but it doesn't have a lot of heart to it.
Hmm.
I think it needs a little bit of heart. I said, could we add some of your poetry? My
Hmm.
wife has written, she's an award-winning poet. She's written and had published two books of award-winning poetry. She said, well, if you think it would help the book, I said, well, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I think it would bring the book, some heart. So
Hmm.
it would, as I like to say these days, it would change messages that open the mind into magic that opens the heart.
Love that. Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
she said, well, yeah. So she read the book a second time with that in mind, and
Hmm.
then picked out from her collection of many, many poems that she's written through the years, poems that she felt might add to and expand in that particular way the message that I had placed in those 21 letters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my long answer to your very short question.
I love it. I love it. 1 second. Well, I love that, and I'm appreciative of it because even at my age, I like things distilled down and easy, and I'm in a place now where it's easier for me to hear than when I was, much more rigid and guarded. And part of that is age; it just wears you down after a while. It
Yeah,
just,
but I hear every word you're saying, and you and I have shared the same experience. But I do think that it is possible. I mean, honestly, if someone had told me when I was in my 20s or 30s what I know now, I think I wouldn't have been quite as rigid and quite as guarded, and
yeah,
might have been more open to looking more deeply at the whole purpose of life, why we're here, who we really are, what this journey is about, and what happens when this particular phase of the journey
yes.
has come to completion.
And actually, my sons will get a copy of your book because they're in their 20s, so that'll be, and my one in the 30s, so that'll be hopefully good for them. Um, so you write that nothing has meaning except the meaning we give it. And while that sounds kind of like liberating, like I just pick and choose meaning, it also can be destabilizing. When did that shift, like from a philosophy to a lived experience? And can you give examples of how that lived experience, what that looks like, that lived experience?
I sure can. It happened almost immediately after I had my earliest experience of what I came to call conversations with God. And almost immediately, I came to realize that nothing has any meaning save the meaning we give it. And I've had many direct experiences of that. I can assure you that I've experienced that two people can have the same encounter in life and have two entirely different experiences of the same encounter. That they give it two different, entirely different meanings. For instance, to use a simplistic, almost naive example, but two people go into the same restaurant. One person comes out a half hour later saying, "What a fantastic place! I'm coming back here often. My wife and I loved it." And another person comes out 5 minutes later, "I'll never come back here again." So they've had two entirely different experiences and gave entirely different meanings to what occurred inside that restaurant. Now, I can give you a far more meaningful example. A number of years ago now, many years ago, but I was married to a wonderful lady, and it wasn't working out. So we decided to part company. There was no animosity. We just gently agreed with each other that it wasn't working out the way we had hoped.
Mm-hmm.
So we agreed that I would just, kind of move out. But I was very, 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 very sad that I lost that relationship and that my time with her was over, and that I couldn't seem to find a way to hold it together. I was very sad. I was
Mm-hmm.
sharing my experience a few months later with a man that I knew at work, and he had the same exact encounter in his life. He had just gone through the loss of his relationship, his wife, and he had decided to get a divorce. But he didn't see it as a failure. He didn't see it as his failure. He saw it in an entirely different way. He gave it an entirely different meaning. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean to him that he didn't know how to conduct a relationship or make it work well, or that he was missing something that he should have understood. He gave it an entirely different meaning, and he was happy about it. He was like, "Yay!" And that's when I also realized, wow, we've had the exact same experience. Because it wasn't that he didn't still love this lady. He still loved
Mm-hmm.
her, but he didn't give it the same meaning that I gave it when I lost my relationship. And I can tell you that I could, if I studied this, closely, I could come up with 110 other examples as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, that's when God said to me, "Oh, Neale, sweetheart, nothing has any meaning save the meaning you give it. You are the person who's deciding what anything means. And when you decide that, you place a great power in your life. You can determine what something means to you. It can be used in major events like having lost a job, or small, tiny events like somebody just says the wrong thing to you over the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
You could decide, what does that mean? And when I really heard that, I thought that put an enormous creative power in my life, honestly. And these days, when something hits me in what I want to call the wrong way, or sometimes even in the right way, I determine, what does that mean? Like when I lost my job, now what does this mean actually? That I'm another failure? That I just can't even hold a good job? Or does it
Mm-hmm.
mean the world is opening a new avenue up for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, so I'm sorry, that's my 6.5 minute answer to your 30-second question.
No, no, I love it. I love it. And it's exactly what we're looking for because that's that's kind of the way it goes. It's not how do you I hear what you're saying. It makes complete logical sense. I see it in my own life and other people's lives. Um, but and sometimes the dogma or the automatic response is, if as I've reviewed my life, things that I attempted and didn't succeed in, and I'm like, well, I didn't ever succeed in that. It's not like I had success and then changed my mind and success. It's kind of like you meet failure and then you go on to something else. How do you, how can you look at it, or how do you frame it or rewire? What is it you do to help move yourself along from the pity or the victim mindset?
I decide what I want things to mean. I decide actively
Okay.
what I
Just,
want things to mean.
mhm,
I've eliminated negative thinking from my life. I'm not going there, but it's easy for me to say, my dear, I'm 82 years old. If I had known this when I was, even 42, forget about 82. If I had known this when I was
mhm,
42, it would have changed much in my life. So, but at least I've learned, better late than never. So at least I've come to clarity about, wait a minute, no, I don't need to think about it in that way. And you know what that's done, of course, is not just stop me from, all the sadness or the anger or the frustration, but open me to new opportunities to create outcomes that I do choose. For instance, just as an example, you used about the failure to have a project come through the way you had hoped it would. God said to me, and I've learned in my conversations with God, failure is an illusion. And I've decided that failure is an illusion. There's no such thing as failure. There's simply such a thing as steps toward success. And, you know, I finally found a way to get that across, even talking to my, 9 and 10-year-old grandchildren. They were sad because
mhm,
they failed their uh, math exam on their multiplication tests.
mhm,
I said, that's not a failure. You're just a step you've taken to learn your
mhm,
multiplication tables. It's simply a step toward where you're going. And I said to my little 10-year-old granddaughter, this is just how life works, sweetheart. We take steps toward where we want to go. And sometimes the steps aren't quite as easy as we thought they would be. And sometimes they feel like failure, but no learning is a failure. All learning is an expanding. All learning is a success. No learning is a failure. So I've discovered that thinking of things in a positive way moves me forward further and more rapidly than honestly I ever thought I could go. And I want a 21-year-old or a 31-year-old to know that when
Oh, yeah.
they can really use it and not wait until they're 60 or 70.
How great this world would be if they all just leapfrogged right over us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank
I'm
you very
fine with that.
much.
Yeah. You suggest that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And for someone who doesn't resonate with spiritual language, what does that look like in practical terms? How would you, someone who's not spiritual, someone who's young, maybe has no spiritual background, how might you describe that in more practical terms for them?
We are philosophical beings. We are beings of philosophy. That is, we step into and come from our personal philosophy in creating the moments that we are experiencing in our life. And so, if we allow ourselves to embrace a philosophy, not even a spiritual point of view, but a philosophy uh, that allows us to move forward positively, we then can find a roadway to greater peace, comfort, serenity, frankly, success and fulfillment in our life. And when somebody asks me, when a young person says, "Well, like, can you give me an example of what you're talking about, or what does that mean?" I say, "You know what? I'm going to invite you to read a book that I read when I was about 27 years old. Maybe I was 37 now that I think about it. It was way too late in my life. But it was a book that really was extraordinarily insightful. It was written by a man named Norman Vincent Peale. And Norman Vincent Peale wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. Everybody should read the book called The Power of Positive Thinking. Everybody should also read a book by James Allen called As a Man Thinketh. These kinds of books can truly change a person's life because they put us in touch with the power that we have been given as sentient beings. And that's the power of the mind. Our thoughts, and particularly our emotions, the emotions we attach to our thoughts, are powerful, powerful tools. Way more powerful than the average person
That
understands.
is my next question. It says you elevate emotion above thought and shaping reality. What's convinced you that emotion is the primary creative force?
Because emotion puts energy of thought into motion. When I have a thought, and if it just remains in my mind as a thought, it's just an idea that's swimming around in my head. It could be positive, it could be negative, but it's just an idea swimming around in my mind. But when it changes into an emotion, E equals motion, energy in motion. That's my little play on the word emotion. When my thoughts become emotional, or when I become emotional because of a thought I'm holding, now I become dangerous or incredibly powerful, one or the other. But I do not
Yeah.
move through life without creating outcomes. So I wrote a book about this whole subject called When Everything Changes, Change Everything. And it talks about the power of thought and the incredible power of emotion that emerges from the thoughts that we are holding
Okay. I haven't read that one.
Wow, I've had negative thoughts and also positive thoughts. And what's sad is that I might have a very positive thought about a circumstance or a person, and I don't put it into motion. I don't let my
Wow.
emotions carry that thought into my life. But I find that if I have a negative thought, I often allow my emotions to carry that into my life.
They do seem to be very powerful. Negative thoughts seem to, do you think that's a training or do you think there's some relativity to that?
I think both.
Hmm.
I think both are true. But I think that we are, you know, Adrienne, such innocent people when we're young, especially. We're just innocent beings, like a puppy dog who doesn't quite understand.
I
But
have a 2.5-year-old grandson, and that describes him perfectly.
yeah, and
Just a puppy dog, just running around, being his
yeah,
best life, running into things.
we're so innocent. So of course, when negative things happen, we give it much more emotion than when positive things happen.
I wrote something about that too. I'm like, why do we listen to the one negative Yelp review when we have 99 positive Yelp reviews? But we'll hyperfixate on that one negative Yelp review.
Yeah, exactly.
We fret and we worry and we try to, bend ourselves in the pretzel to fix the one negative, and we just forget about the 100 fantastic Yelp reviews we get every day.
And the same
So
thing can
yeah,
happen
you're
inside
right.
of a marriage.
Hmm.
My wife can tell me 150 things that she likes about me and that she thinks I'm doing really well, and the reasons that she admires me in certain areas of life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if she makes one comment about me that's not quite so positive, that really
Yeah,
lands big time. So, and if I say something
yeah.
to her, if I say, "Oh, honey, that's I can't," and let her know that how that impacted me, she has to remind me. She said, "Do you know how many things I've told you just yesterday alone are the reasons that I love you and I'm so glad I married you?" She says, "Do they have any balance in your life?" So she's a great clarity bringer for me. My wife is my clarity bringer.
Yeah. Yeah, we need more of those people. Um, so the law of opposites is something you discuss in this book. Do you believe that contrast is necessary for evolution or just inevitable?
Both. Here we go again. You keep on placing before me this or that, and I've discovered that it's
The answer
rarely
is
this.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, precisely. It's rarely this or that. It's almost always both.
Hmm.
So I think the law of opposites is inevitable, and I think that it's powerful and a very positive uh, experience that we're having in life.
Okay. Um,
It's
Here's a
necessary
question.
too, by the way, if I could make the point.
Yes,
It,
please.
it's necessary. I'm going to use a metaphor. I don't want people to think that I imagine that I am the light of the world. But I'm just using a metaphor. So folks, don't go off the deep end with this. But as a metaphor, if I say that I want to bring I want the room to lighten up when I come into the room. I want to be kind of like the light of the space. God would say to me, well, you you can't experience yourself as the light. You can know yourself as the light, but you can't experience what it's like being the light unless you're where? Ah, in the darkness.
Got it.
Therefore, raise not your fist to heaven and curse the darkness not, but be a light unto the darkness, that you might know who you really are, and that all those whose lives you touch might know who they really are as well. And then God said to me, Neale, you're 6 feet tall. What's it like being 6 feet tall? So, I've always liked being 6 feet, a 6 foot tall person.
Mhm.
I kind of really enjoyed it. And God said to me, but what if every tree, every blade of grass, every plant, every flower, every house, every car, and every person, what if everything in the universe was precisely 6 feet tall? How would you be able to experience what it's like being 6 feet tall? Ah, in the absence of what you are not, what you are is not experienceable.
Got it. Makes so much sense. So much sense. How do you reconcile that or reconcile this with the circumstances people don't seem to consciously choose? Like sometimes people's lives, you look at them and you're like, they couldn't have chosen that. And I see how they might be stuck for their own reasons, but how did they choose it to begin with, do you think?
No, I don't think that we choose it. I don't think we deliberately choose negative outcomes. I think that what's going on in life is that we are collaboratively co-creating circumstances, situations, and outcomes that arise from our collective consciousness.
Okay.
And the solution is to raise the collective consciousness first in your own family and those that you're surrounded by, the two or three or five or six or eight people that you are in continual touch with and in constant interactions with. Then with, your friends and neighbors and people around you, maybe people around you at work and people that you're associating with. And then even further to widen the circle to total strangers, people you run into at the grocery store or that you check in with at the post office when you're going over there to mail in the package or whatever, and just allow
Mhm.
yourself to step into the process more fully and more completely.
Mhm. Hmm.
The process of life. This is life, and no change happens that's not change for the better.
Say that again.
That again.
Say what you just said. I'm sorry. That's,
You said say that again, so I
I
said that again.
know, I know. You got me. You said no change.
Is that occurs is not change for the better. All change is change for the better. That's also another point that's made in the book. When everything changes, change everything, including your idea about change itself.
Mhm.
Because even change which you have thought was change for the worse, many, many, many times turns out to be change for the better. You know how I noticed that? You know why I'm aware of that? I used to, when I've given a
I'm
lot of,
dying to hear, given the current political situation, I am dying to hear where you got that.
well, first of all, I got it from people. I've given a lot of talks. I've given speeches for the past 30 years, and I've spoken to, and I'm not exaggerating, probably 100,000 people or more in the
Mhm.
past 30 years. I've spoken to audiences as big as 3,000 or 4,000 people. And I'll
Mhm.
stand in front of an audience and I'll say, how many of you have experienced what you felt was, while it was occurring, one of the worst things that could ever happen to you, only to discover 2 weeks or 2 months or sometimes 2 years later that it was one of the best things that ever happened to you? How many of you have had that experience? And my friend, 98% of the hands in the audience go up. So what I've learned, and then of course history has also shown me the same thing,
Mhm.
that even the worst of our geopolitical, global economic, international, social crises have ultimately produced huge steps forward in our evolutionary process. There are things happening on the planet right now that we're going to say no to big time. We're not going to just say no to them. We're going to say never again. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not making this up. There's a guy named Martin Luther King Jr. who proved it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lady named Gloria Steinem who proved it. There's a guy named Harvey Milk who proved it. Gloria Steinem stood up and said, wait a minute, let me see if I understand this. You think that a man should earn more than a woman if they're both doing exactly the same job with the same degree of expertise?
Mm-hmm.
That he should earn more money simply because he has a penis?
Mm-hmm.
That's your idea of the society you want to create? And Gloria Steinem woke up a lot of people and
Yep.
changed the way
Which is
things
why
are.
it's so shocking we're having these conversations again. I was of the theory that these things were settled, that we didn't go by skin color and we didn't go by sex. I just thought these things were just done conversations. And now I've woken up and realized for some people, they're not done conversations. And you're probably right. Now we're going to have to make them done conversations. It's the time to make them
Yes.
done conversations.
Oh, well, you know what? That's the title of your next book. Oh,
The title,
wow.
the title of my next book.
Yes. That's your book title. Done Conversations. There's no way in the world that book doesn't fly off the shelf.
I am writing
Done
it down right now
Conversations.
because do you know this is off topic a little bit, but do you know John Davis?
No, I do not.
He's interviewed you before. Yeah,
Well,
he's
I don't
interviewed
know.
you
I've been
before.
interviewed by 6,000 people, so I don't
So
remember
many
them.
people, yeah. Anyway, he every time I talk to him, he gives me a title for a book. And so now I'm gonna write this one down and this is my next book. You're right. Done conversations. Conversations we are done having because they have been settled.
Yes.
Love it. Another thing I was thinking about is, which I love, and I clearly need to apply all these principles in my life more. I've been very short-tempered with what's been going on around me. But you talk about choosing benevolence ahead of time. And that sounds powerful. That sounds like the right thing to do. But it's for some of us very, very difficult. And do you think
Unless
this
it's
is
not.
discipline? Unless it's not. And that's a choice too. You're right. But do you think it's discipline, maturity, or what is it that can help
It's
people?
determinations. It's not discipline or maturity. It's determination. It's commitment. It's determination to be who you really are. Adrienne, you're an individuation of divinity. You are an individual expression of the highest form of life. And the highest form of life that I call God, some people call Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever word you want to use. But for
Mhm.
people who believe in an originating first power, people understand that that first power can be defined by two words: pure love. And that's who you are. You are an embodiment of pure love. And life, it gives you an opportunity to love others without needing, expecting, requiring, or demanding anything in return. And when you decide to do that, you have chosen to truly love others and not love yourself. Because when we expect something from the person we say we love, we're not loving them. We're simply loving ourselves through them, using them and what we're getting from them to love ourselves. But when I can look at the person on the pillow next to me and say, you know what? I love you no matter what. Then I've expressed pure love.
Like to our children, people experience it in that way often.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I say to the lady on the pillow next to me, I love you no matter what, she looks at me and she says, I'm not a young woman, but no man has ever said that to me in my entire life before you. That's why I love you.
That's very powerful. Very powerful.
So it doesn't take anything but commitment, determination. I'm determined to express and fulfill in every interaction of my life.
I think I used to say when people met me, I wanted them to think they'd met Jesus.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful way to put it.
I have a long way to go, but I'm working on it.
Well, we all have a long way to go, you know.
Some people make it easier than others. Let's just say
Yeah. Yes, some people make it easier than others. There are people like Ram Dass and Martin Luther King Jr. and there are people like Gloria Steinem who made it easier than others made it. But we can become one of those people. All we have to do is follow the advice of Mr. Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And so when I wake up and I go out into the world, whether I'm going to the post office or to the coffee shop or to the grocery store or whatever I'm doing, I decide to be the change I wish to see in the world. And that changes my whole experience. Not only my experience of myself, but my experience of others as well.
I love that. Thank you.
And when I encounter other people in the world, whether they're just local people around town or international leaders from all the countries of the planet, when I encounter other people who are behaving in ways with which I do not agree, I say to myself, understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. One of the letters, by the way, in Letters to a Young Seeker. That's letter to number 16. Understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. You know, I have an interesting encounter. I'm invited to speak in churches, synagogues, and temples and places of worship. I'm invited a lot to speak to those people because they think that I might have something interesting to say. And I'll stand in front of the congregation and I'll say to them, how many of you believe in God? Well, all the hands go up because that's why they're in the temple. That's why they're in the synagogue. That's why they're in the church. So their hands all go up. I say, great. Do you understand that God will never forgive you for anything? And the place goes crazy. Their eyes cross. Some guys even get up in the back of the room and walk out. Nah, I'm one of these new age freakos. I said, wait. Give me a chance at least to explain. Then if you disagree after I explain, fair enough. And then you walk out. But don't walk out before you hear the explanation. So he'll put his, all right, what's the explanation? I said, God is the highest power in the universe. Nothing that little you or little me could do or say or be that could hurt, injure, upset, damage, frustrate, or anger God in any way. Therefore, God has no reason to forgive you because God understands how you could behave the way you're behaving. even as you would understand how a 2-year-old at your dinner table could do something that they did, said something deliberately to hurt somebody's feelings or misbehaved on purpose. You don't turn to that 2-year-old child and say, "It's okay, sweetheart. Grandpa forgives you." Because you understand forgiveness is not part of the equation. Because Grandpa understands how a 2-year-old could behave that way and what would cause a 2-year-old to do or say what they just did. And God understands that we're all behaving like 2-year-olds. But when we understand how a person could do or say what they just did or said, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean we condone it. Doesn't mean we agree with it. It simply means that we understand how they could have gotten there and how they could have wound up saying or doing what they're saying or doing. Then understanding replaces forgiveness. And that's true. Understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. And you know what's one of the most powerful things you can say to a person with whom you disagree? One of the most powerful things I've learned to say to people when I'm having an important disagreement is, I think we can find a way to disagree agreeably. I don't agree with what you've just done or what you've just said, but I can understand how you could have done or said that. That's a powerful thing for someone to hear. People say to me, "You can? You really mean that?" I say, "Yes." Let me repeat. I don't agree. I don't condone, but I can understand. For instance, there are some leaders in the world right now of various countries that are doing and saying things that I don't agree with. But I can understand how they came to that point of view. That doesn't mean that I'm happy about it, but it means that I don't have to add to the problem by becoming even more separate and adding even more aggression and producing even more disagreement. You got to stop duplicating the behaviors with which we disagree. Write that on your bathroom mirror. Stop duplicating behaviors with
You
which
see the guilt all over my face? Is that what we're doing?
stop duplicating behaviors with which we disagree.
Okay.
Because I spent 30 years of my life, my adult life, my 20s, 30s, and 40s, duplicating the behaviors that I found not acceptable in others.
Yeah. Good point.
So when your book comes
Um,
out, you'll touch many people's lives with ideas that can change that behavior in them.
yes. Yep, I like that. You distinguish pain from suffering.
Yes, huge
In your,
difference.
yeah, in your own life, what was the hardest pain to reinterpret or to change from pain to suffering or suffering to pain?
When I was on the street for a year, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but I lived on the sidewalk for a year of my life. That's not fun, I promise you. Sleeping on the ground, in the rain, in the cold, no place to get under even a roof anywhere. Waking up in the morning without 25 cents in your pocket and having to go to people one by one and asking if they might have just even some small change that they could spare so that you could eat something by the end of the day. I did that for a year of my life. Not,
I think I read that in your first book. You wrote about that experience a little
and
bit.
I didn't do
Not
it because I wanted to.
right.
It's just what happened. It's just how life rolled out for me.
I don't think a lot
What
of
was your
people,
original question?
I don't think a lot of people understand how sometimes that just happens to everyday people.
Yeah,
And they just end up there and they're not mentally unstable and they're not drug addicts and they're not a lot of things, but sometimes
yeah.
life just fucking happens and that's a consequence of it and it isn't fair and it's scary and
No, life is not fair. And so whenever I pass a homeless person now, sitting on the sidewalk, leaning up against a building with a little basket in front of him with a cardboard sign that says, anything helps, I make sure I have some folding money to put in that basket. In fact, I never leave the house without some folding money easily reachable. So that even if I'm pulling off of a highway, pulling off of a turnpike onto a city roadway, and there's a homeless guy standing on the exit on the little island asking for some help, I can roll the window down and hand him a 20. Say, here, pal, here.
yeah, you understand. Yeah. The original question was, you distinguish pain from suffering in your own life, and what was the hardest pain to reinterpret? And then you brought up your time living on the streets.
Yeah. The
And
difference between pain and suffering is that pain is something that we experience either emotionally or physically, but suffering is our decision that it shouldn't be happening. And the example I like to use is a woman in childbirth. I've been present with women who have given birth to my children more than once. In fact, I was present when one lady gave birth to triplets.
you have triplets? Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yes. I have 9 children, 3 of whom were born in one afternoon. And I was right there holding the hand of my beloved while she gave birth one after the other. And did she experience pain? Of course. Almost unremitting pain. 3 children born within an hour and a half. But did she suffer? No. She had tears of joy. Tears of joy rolling down her cheeks is a moment I'll never forget. And I said, aren't you in pain? You look happy. She said, sweetheart, I'm happy because I am in pain. I'm bringing new life into the world. All personal pain is a rebirthing of bringing new life to ourselves. And when I understood that I am being reborn in every moment of my life, and I've changed my idea about why something is occurring. And I eliminated suffering from my life. I haven't eliminated pain, emotional or physical, but I have eliminated suffering. I had open heart surgery 10 years ago. It's not an experience I would recommend.
Mm-mm.
They open up your body from just below your chin to just above your waist. And after they open your body up, they take a saw and they saw through your rib cage. And then they open up your rib cage and they go into your heart. And they open your heart up and they put in arteries and veins that they find elsewhere in your body. I didn't have a triple bypass. I didn't have a quadruple bypass. No, I had a quintuple bypass.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You were open for a long time.
I'm still open. My body isn't open, but my soul and my mind are. And that experience opened me to a new truth. Oh, all change is change for the better. even the worst human experience you could hope for. A quintuple bypass? I remember the doctor saying to me, the surgeon, after I woke up from the anesthesia, he said, "Well, my friend, you just bought yourself 10 years." And then he looked at me and said, "What are you going to do with the rest of your life?" Voila, as the French would say.
Mhm.
A
How old
new,
were you when you had your quintuple bypass?
it was 10 or 12 years ago. I was about 71, I think, 70.
Oh, so then they asked you, what do you do with the rest of your life at 71 after all that you'd already accomplished too? So you
Yeah,
still have
because they
time.
realized that the doctor realized that what I had accomplished meant nothing. My
Mhm.
life is not about my accomplishments. It's about my experience of who I am. Or as
Mhm.
God said to me in conversations with God, God said, "Neale, sweetheart, your life is not about you. Your life is not about you. It's about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it." But when you realize that, you discover that at a universal level, your life is about you for an elegant reason. There's only one of us in the room.
There's only one of us in the room.
We are all
One.
one.
That's right. That's right. That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Everything I say makes sense.
It's true. And I like the way you say it. When you say there's enough, do you mean, it's another one of those questions. Do you mean metaphysically, materially, or psychologically?
All three. Here we go again. It's either this or that. No, it's not this or that. It's all three.
It's all three. Mhm. Um, you're writing, and it's 82 years old, you're still writing.
I'm
Do
excited
you
about that.
think, what?
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. I'm grateful. Um, what do you think is softened in you that wasn't soft before? What do you think the way you express yourself now, the way you did when you were younger, has changed?
You don't want to ask me, you don't want to ask an 82-year-old man what is soft now that wasn't soft before.
Touche. Touche. You're phenomenal.
I think, I think my experience, to repeat something I said earlier, I think my experience of people with whom I disagree.
Hmm.
That would be my answer to your question.
Besides the other answer, which is equally understood. Um, is there what can you give examples of things that you saw in your 40s that you were just absolutely certain about that you see very differently now? Is it the
Oh,
same
it's just,
answer? The
oh, sure. Things I was absolutely certain about. Life depended on my success. It depended on how much money I earned. It depended on how much people I was approved of by. Life was determined, frankly, largely by other people. How many people approved of me? How many people paid me well? How many people, gave me what I felt I needed? And I really, really felt that My life was determined by bunches of other people and how they were acting toward me.
Mhm.
Only after I had what I experienced as my conversations with God did I become aware that, oh, life is determined by how I respond to what I'm thinking, saying, and doing. Oh, I get it. How interesting. It's not about anyone else.
Yep. What do you think young people most misunderstand about life? And what do older people most misunderstand about youth?
I think what younger people misunderstand about life is that um, life is not about get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the building on the corner with your name on the wall. It's more of what I just said a minute ago. Life is not about what you can gather but what you can give. What older people misunderstand most about the young people, from my observation, is that I think most older people don't think that young people have the ability to comprehend, to embrace, to absorb, and to step into a higher way of being. If we realized that young people are yearning for that higher way of being, and even suggesting some of those higher ways of being, if we listen to some of the younger people among us, we might be a whole different society.
Yeah. My
So
kids, my kids did a fairly decent job of raising me in some ways.
precisely, nicely put.
Yeah, they taught me a lot, and I'm grateful to them. If a 25-year-old reads your book, this is kind of my final question. I have one more after that, but if a 25-year-old reads this book and only remembers one inner awareness for the rest of their life, which one do you hope that it is?
The most powerful way to experience what you wish to experience in your life is not to be a seeker, but to be the source of it in the life of another. Because what you give to another comes back to you, multiplied. What goes around comes around. And what you fail to give to others, you fail to give to yourself. Now, there's a guy who's made this very clear about 2,000 years ago. He put it really much more simply. He simply said, do unto others as you would have it done unto you. Because he understood what you do unto others is being done unto you for the same reason I gave you 3 minutes ago.
Mhm.
Because there's only one of us in the room.
Now, the sad thing is, what people do unto others is actually what they do expect to have done unto them. And they haven't set the bar very high for themselves either.
That's an astute observation. You said you had one more question. What was your final question?
My final question is, what in this interview have we not covered that you would think is important to say?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Well, I appreciate your time immensely. Thank you so, so much. Do you still do public speaking? Sorry, there's more questions now.
I don't do it in person, but I do it online a lot.
Hmm.
I speak, I'm into large groups, not just podcasts like this wonderful one, but I do a lot of talks to groups, virtual speeches, virtual addresses to conferences and events that are taking place around the world. And so I do that a great deal. And so I'm available. They put me on a big screen. I'm live. I have interactions with the audience. The only difference is I'm simply not in the room physically, but I am in the room virtually.
I love it.
I'm still doing a lot of public speaking for sure.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to try and catch more of your public speaking. So I really appreciate your time and your insight. And thanks for sharing your wisdom and opening yourself up to sharing yourself with the world.
Thank you for those very kind words. Those are nice things to hear and nice things for you to see. Thank you.